Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. I've made it, and guess who's made it with me? Yes, I know you're waiting to see that gorgeous beard. Tom is here. Yay! Hello, Tom. Tom, really? But really?
Hello.
Is it an awkward sibling hour without technical difficulties, which I hear an echo of myself?
Why is there an echo all of a sudden now?
I know it was fine. We were testing this before we got here, half hour early to test, and we were playing with the stuff to make sure we wouldn't have any technical difficulties. And then we go live, and it's like, oh, boop, hi. I can hear that echo. Okay. Hey, everybody.
Megan likes your look.
Oh, well, thank you. I am workshopping a new drag look. Thank you. I'm calling it the Red Queen. I'm playing around. So I am so glad you noticed. So thank you so much. You've made my day already, even with the, technical stuff. Hello, CB. Hello, sweetie. So in fact, yes, I was getting excited. Let me just go ahead. You know what? Because I'm that kind of gal. You see, I did a little orange here. Oh, yeah. I'm telling you now, it looks like on fire in person. It looks fantastic. The webcam doesn't do it justice, but I still like it. Fun fact, Mary Kay was the very first drag queen I ever met. My mother had joined Mary Kay when we lived in Dallas when I was 2.5. And Mary Kay was adamant about that her company was a family place. So for the convention, she insisted that everyone bring their kids if they didn't have childcare. Mom did not have childcare, so she brought me. And at a certain point, Mary Kay, apparently near the end of the convention, was told the daycare workers bring in all the kids. And Mary Kay wanted to meet and hold every baby and it be introduced to every toddler. So Mary Kay was the very first drag queen I ever met. And I feel like this was kind of influential. Hi, Steph. How are you doing? I hope you had a good nap. Laura's here somewhere too. I hope. Yes. Yes, Laura's here. Maybe somewhere. And here to do research for character. Yes. On how to make trauma work for my main character. Poor girl's going through a rough time. I mean, yeah, if it's PTSD related, especially if you don't know what's happening, it feels like you're under some sort of terrible evil enchantment. So, good job. Good job. Y'all let me know, are you hearing the echo or is it just me?
I'm not hearing an echo.
If it's just me hearing the echo, then I am fine and I will not stress about it. If anything, it's like, hi, and welcome to, an auditorium, which, let's be honest, I love an audience. So, but anyhow, maybe it is StreamYard because on the 2 streams that I co-hosted on during Write-a-thon on Saturday and Sunday, the host heard echoing. So in both of them, I wore my headphones, and that is how I learned that my earbud headphones. I know none of you were expecting a display. These guys, where it has these like that fit in the ear. I learned that my ear holes are not big enough for these, and they are actually quite painful because they're trying to stretch my ear holes out, and it was pretty miserable. So I have learned that I have petite holes. Not necessarily where I would like it to be small, quite frankly. I would love to have big old ear holes so I can hear all the things. Mostly when people whisper. Oh, don't you ever wonder, like, what are they whispering to each other? Yes, Write-a-thon kit. Oh, me too, honey. I'm dragging, And I guess that's why I was kind of willing to do the Red Queen today and the hair and everything. And I will keep playing with this look. So y'all are going to see it again. By the way, if anybody has any feedback on my Red Queen makeup and get up, feedback is our friend. I absolutely would love your feedback now or later. You can always just DM me. I love drag. So it's great having some people to show off for at least once a week. Especially now that I have Tom's birthday present arrived and I have been playing all week with it because I was going to wait till May when my birthday is. And then I was like, life is short. Wear it now. So, yeah, baby.
And they are some strong colors.
They are. I will say this for anybody thinking about it, which I do not regret this. I'm glad that I got it, but it doesn't blend with each other super well. So I kind of have to think about what I'm going to apply first and only do it to that area. And then, so it doesn't build with other layers of color, different colors very well. So just a warning. So it kind of reminds me of medium quality painting acrylics that they don't necessarily blend super well with each other, but they're quite vibrant on their own. So that's actually how I think about it. As I said, I do not regret this. I love it. Also, I love the container it is in. It's a nice, strong magnet. So I'm not worried that it's going to pop open and then, something's going to fall out or even the dust, the powder will fall. I'm not worried about that. So would get again. Not that anybody asked. You playing again, Tom, with the...
Oh, but I feel like if it's just the two of us...
Okay, well, all right. True.
You might as well be talking heads.
And I am wearing Mary Kay lip color, since Tom used to sell Mary Kay. What is it anyway? Yes, Gloria, what is it? Nobody asked, but here. That's the other one. As there's like a theatrical rustle off camera. It is really red. That is what it is called. It's called
Honest.
Really red. And so that's how it went on.
They mean it.
It's very highly pigmented. I will say I love Mary Kay lipsticks because the color that you see is very much the color you get. So if you don't want as much color, you could just like dot it on with like some balm underneath and you get a lovely sheer version, which I have seen interviews of Mary Kay where she said that is the point of her lip colors is it's very highly pigmented. So if you don't want a lot, you don't have to use a lot. So a real drag queen if there ever was. Anyhow, just because, guys, I'm weather nerd. How is the weather where you are? Today's high is going to be 83. No rain. So I would love to hear how the weather is. It's not something you have to tell me, but I heard that there was a snowstorm that went through Colorado and Wyoming area. So the western part of the Midwest. I don't know. Is Colorado part of the Midwest? Or is it the mountains? It probably is the mountains.
No, it's the West. Yeah, it's mountains.
Yeah, isn't that the part of the Grand Tetons? There's so much geography in America. I'm just saying. And I've driven through a bunch of it, which is totally worth it. But, and I hear that snowstorm is now heading, I guess at least now it's heading to the Midwest and will eventually make it to the Northeast. So I'm just very curious. Also, CB, how's the weather? I like to know the updates about Scotland because I keep fantasizing about like visiting there. And I just want to know like how realistic are my fantasies. CB says it was cold and drizzly today which matched my mood. Oh, yes. It sounds so Scottish. It sounds like such Scottish.
I was going to say, isn't that what you can just post automatically? And it's more of, was it not cold and drizzly today in Scotland?
Yes.
By all accounts.
I'll tell you, I love cold and drizzly, which we don't actually get that often here. But for some reason, like, I don't really feel the cold and drizzly as on me. It doesn't make me feel achy or anything. So I enjoy it. I am that weirdo. Yeah. Well, thank y'all for telling me you don't hear the echo. So if you do hear an echo later, let me know. I'm really starting to wonder if it's StreamYard, quite frankly.
Probably.
Would not surprise me one bit. Oh, Megan says it's cloudy. My phone refuses to tell me the temperature. Darn you, phone.
Temperature is a construct.
Yes. It's just a thing that we made up to make ourselves feel better. Okay. So, it's just the two of us, Tom. Because everybody is recovering from the, should we say, trauma of write-a-thon?
Yeah, no, I think it counts as trauma. One thing I always feel is not acknowledged enough about trauma is nobody gets to decide what is traumatic.
Yes.
The only thing that gets to decide what is traumatic is the back of your... Yes.
It's the lizard brain. Okay, so the lizard brain is what Tom and I call, what is it? You took anatomy and physiology 6 times.
The limbic system.
The limbic system. I was thinking of that part of the brain, though. Like, is it the basal?
Oh, it's the back. Yeah, it's at the basal. It's in the back of your head.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. That's what I was like. Don't you remember?
At the neutral. Was it the neutral notch?
But that is like the lizard brain. So if you've ever seen like how fetuses grow in the very early stages of gestation, like human fetuses, they go through, and yes, there is at a point that we all had a tail. Each of us individually in vitro, well, in gestation, had a tail. That's always my favorite time period, by the way, of gestation, is, that point when we have a tail. It's like, I think it's like somewhere between week 7 and week 10. But I always I had a tail once. I miss it. I wish everyone still had a tail so I'd better understand their emotions. But anyway. But yeah, so there is sort of this, I would not say evolution, but you kind of see all of genetically how we've become humans eventually. And that includes that the part we have in common with lizards is back here. And that's where Tom and I joke about the lizard brain. When we first wake up, we're not very verbal at all. It's mostly grunts. You want this?
But it's that part, though, that, it's where your fight, flight, or freeze is. It's where your real basic, just trying to survive, keep the body running, it is. It's the lizard brain, because it's, what we share in common with them.
Right, and that's what we call it, is the lizard brain. And
but it gets to decide what's traumatic.
Yes.
There is no, there really should never be any machismo or any kind of comparison about what's traumatic for one person versus another. Of, oh, well, that wasn't a problem for me. Well, because your consciousness and your the part of you that developed in school and learned has no say in what is traumatic to you and what will you keep thinking about and dwelling on. And that's also a lot of why PTSD is hard to recover from, because a lot of people are like, why do I keep thinking about this? That, it makes sense, but that's because it's not your conscious part. It's the back of your brain.
It's true. Do you want to go ahead and yes. So we thought we would start with a little jokey joke. Nurse.
But it does put PTSD well into perspective of, this is also what PTSD is like at the beginning.
Nurse, you scored a 25 out of 27 on your mental health questionnaire. Me. So that means I'm good at mental health, right? Crisis counselors in interest room. Ah, beans. Yeah. Did you want to go ahead and share the definition or symptoms of PTSD so we could just go ahead?
Yeah. Give me a moment.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event, either experiencing it or witnessing it. Symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, and severe anxiety, as well as uncontrollable thoughts about the event.
And that's right. We don't get to control when we think about it.
Yes, and that's why, like I said, it can feel, especially in the early stages of PTSD, like if it's your first PTSD experience, like where it can feel like you're under an evil enchantment, where someone's constantly pulling your thoughts unbidden. CB says, Endgame is blooming traumatic. Seriously, I'm watching it right now, so I'll probably be traumatized for the rest of the week. Aw. But that's part of the consequence for failing my exam. I'm sorry you failed.
Yeah.
That sucks. The best advice I can give people when coming here is bring a pair of good boots, a warm coat, and an umbrella. Even in the summer, I assume.
Yes. I've heard that from several people who vacationed of Scotland of, why is it still raining?
I've heard that too.
It just rains.
So, did you also have a list of like symptoms beyond that pulled up, or was that we had talked about?
We talked about it. No, I didn't get to it.
Hi, ADHD. How are you? I'm doing fine. How are you doing, ADD?
But if you want to talk for a moment, I'll pull them up.
So, when where to start? Because the beginning is actually not the place to jump in on this. My PTSD, I had PTSD since early childhood. Let's be perfectly honest. And it is at this point estimated that 9 out of 10 people with autism, whether they've been diagnosed or not, have experienced abuse, be it mental, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse. And now they're actually estimating that it's something maybe closer to 95%, which at that point, even medical, biological, psychological statistics, at 95%, it becomes where the exception to the rule of it's unusual to not be. If it's 5% or less of the total population of a subset isn't abused or has like reached the end of their life without experiencing abuse, that's the unusual one. So, because essentially the majority of people who experience abuse will be eventually diagnosed with PTSD, or can be if they see a appropriate medical provider. I'm not talking about who would possibly be biased against them, but I mean, a competent medical provider would get diagnosed with PTSD. So since it is essentially so common for abuse, and PTSD is so widespread among the autism community, as well as, quite frankly, among the entire global population, we thought that this would be a great topic, a common topic to talk about. And so let's see. Reliving aspects of what happened. It can include vivid flashbacks, feeling like the trauma is happening right now, intrusive thoughts or images, nightmares, intense distress at real or symbolic reminders of the trauma, physical sensations such as pain, sweating, nausea, or trembling. Oh yes, gosh, do I remember that. Alertness or feeling on edge. This can include panicking when reminded of the trauma, being easily upset or angry, extreme alertness, and sometimes called hypervigilance, disturbed sleep or a lack of sleep, irritability or aggressive behavior, finding it hard to concentrate, including on simple or everyday tasks, being jumpy or easily startled, other symptoms of anxiety. Oh, avoiding feelings or memories. Oh, yes. This can include feeling like you have to keep busy, avoiding anything that reminds you of the trauma, being unable to remember details of what happened, feeling emotionally numb or cut off from your feelings, feeling physically numb or detached from your body, being unable to express affection, doing things that could be self-destructive or reckless, we will be talking about this, using alcohol or drugs to avoid memories, difficult beliefs or feelings. This can include feeling that you can't trust anyone, feeling like nowhere is safe, feeling like nobody understands, blaming yourself for what happened, overwhelming feelings of anger, sadness, guilt, or shame.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Okay. So we just wanted to give a sort of a scaffolding of the idea of what we're talking about, because the way media presents PTSD and PTSD recovery is not necessarily based in reality at all.
Yeah.
And so it can give people the wrong impression. Megan says, I have CPTSD, which presents a little differently from PTSD. Is it chronic, or is there another one? Or is it complicated PTSD or something like that? Or complex PTSD?
Oh, good point. We're going to need a clarification, Megan.
Or you could look it up. So
I'll work on that. You want?
Okay. So, yeah, because, I got diagnosed with PTSD before there was CPTSD. And so old, children. Complex, yes. I thought it was complex. You want to pull that up, Tom?
Yes.
Tom will
I'm working on it.
So, and that was kind of why we wanted to talk about this, is number one, to let anyone who may be on the neurodivergent spectrum to know that these feelings you have from time to time, they are actually very reasonable and normal. I mean, I wish they weren't normal, but times being what they are the norm right now. Because if 90 to 95% of the autism community has been abused or will be abused at some point in their lifetime, yeah, that's the norm. And there are other ways to be traumatized, not just abuse. So, weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, storms that strike a house, strike a person. Weather can be inciting traumatic events. Also, armed conflicts, obviously. And in fact, a lot of PTSD research originally started with that of soldiers. They used to call it shell shock. And what was it? It used to be called also, can't remember the World War I name for it.
That shell shock was World War I.
No, I thought shell shock was World War II.
Oh.
I can almost hear Dad in my head explain. Anyway, all right. What is
complex? You look at that, and I'll go work on pulling up.
Okay, what is complex PTSD? A condition where you experience some symptoms of PTSD along with some additional symptoms such as difficulty controlling your emotions, feeling very angry or distrustful towards the world. Yes. Constant feelings of emptiness or hopelessness. Feelings as if you are permanently damaged or worthless. Feeling as if you are completely different to other people. Feeling like nobody can understand what happened to you. I'm going to try to adjust my screen because it's so pale. Avoiding friendships and relationships or finding them very difficult. Often experiencing dissociative symptoms such as depersonalization or derealization. Physical symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, chest pains, and stomach aches. Does that say regular suicidal feelings? Looks like regular.
Wait, which one are we on?
The very last bullet point.
Yeah, regular as in
Regular
on a
occurrence.
regular occurrence.
Yeah.
It really should say regular occurrence of suicidal
Yeah,
feelings.
it should say regular occurrence because regular is like it's kind of a dark take on it.
But I did look it up, and the other previous ones was there was shell shock, soldier's heart, war neuroses.
There was another one that Dad used to use. It'll come to
I
me.
know, it's like, why don't they have that one listed?
They don't have the good ones. CB says maybe it was battle shock.
Probably.
Yeah, maybe.
And railway spine.
What?
Look, I'm just. Okay. I know. Anyway.
Laura says my MC is going to have traumatic events, exorcisms. Oh
yeah, that's a fun. That's lifelong right there.
Part of like religious abuse, but okay. Do you think she would project her feelings of terror about the abuser on the others in the house who did not know she was there? Who did not know she was there? Like, was she a ghost, you mean? Or like she was locked away in a room so other people didn't know she was there? You know, like she was there in the house, but nobody knew because she was locked away or something?
Yeah, which one are we referring to, the main character or the abuser?
No, it says
no one knew was there.
She would project her feelings of terror about the abuser on the others in the house who did not know she was there. She was under the house. Okay. At 6 to 8, yes. Everyone would be associated. Not necessarily that they are like the authoritative abuser, but that they knew. Or, well, let me think, because like...
Will they be associated with it as part of the group that caused the abuse, even if they weren't?
So, hearing them walk would be very likely a trigger. But if like any of the other people ever ended up befriending her, then she would very likely dissociate her feelings or her feelings of terror associated with like hearing their breath with something else. Like she, the human need to pack bond with others is so strong that children can definitely juggle far more cognitive dissonance than adults necessarily can do. So she could very likely displace it if she had ended up befriending, or anyone from the house eventually ended up befriending her. Then any of their triggers, like the things they used to do, like if they used to like knock something, to like get something to settle, so they make that sound often, that she would displace that trigger cause onto something else in order to feel like she's okay with the person, though. Children have such a strong need, understandably, to feel like they have friends and they are in a safe space, that they will really... Okay. We were already planning to talk about dissociative disorders, but here we are already here. Okay, so quick caveat. Laura says yes, she befriends a boy about her age. That was the great nephew of the bad guy. So the the information I have from a psychological standpoint, from I guess you could say the science side of psychology, some of it is dated. And when I say it's dated, it's like 10 to 15 years old. However, there's been such amazing research done just in the last 10 years. There has been a blooming of knowledge, and I have not been able to entirely keep up on it, because I had this job and it was full-time, and it was also emotionally exhausting, and frankly it was an abusive job in a very toxic environment, and it eventually made me so sick I ended up in the hospital with sepsis. But nevertheless, hello Charlie. What I know about dissociative identity disorder is accurate from 10, 15 years ago. So I will tell you from that knowledge, at the time, the ongoing theory is that children are born with personality that has not entirely formed into one personality. And that when trauma occurs at a very young age, so pretty much age 7 and under, if the trauma is enough, is it strong enough, or is it frequent enough, is it traumatic enough, and it can impair that person's ability for their personality to fully coalesce into one central personality, hence dissociative identity disorder. So with you saying that the exorcisms start at 6 and go to 8, or are around 6 to 8, that is still within that time window where children essentially have an easier way to dissociate. Now, at the time, the research was that only 25% of the population is predisposed to severe forms of PTSD that go into dissociative disorders, specifically dissociative identity disorder. So not everyone who experiences extreme trauma as a child, as a young child, would necessarily develop dissociative identity disorder, but essentially 1 out of 4 minimum. So if you think about that, that's actually pretty common for human experience. A 25%, or possibly higher now, I don't know.
Well, I thought they were talking about, when we did do some research, that it had increased. Now that they had, in the new DSM, increased it to a spectrum for disassociation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you count all the different ways and levels of disassociation, it's a much higher percentage of the population who...
Well, dissociation is dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah, the identity part...
That was what I was trying to say, is like, it's like 12 years ago, the prevailing science, psychological science about dissociative identity disorder was a minimum of 1 out of 4 children who experience extreme or prolonged amounts of trauma during the formative years of up to and through age 7 are likely to develop dissociative identity disorder. To what level, they were not investigating at the time. They were just like either yes or no. And they were predicting that it could be even more, like 1 out of 3. So, but what I was trying to say is, with dissociative identity disorder, it is much easier to compartmentalize trauma because the personality is not one cohesive personality. It's actually whatever you need it to be. And it is, as several psychologists and social workers and other psychology industry professionals have told me when I was doing my research, it's a superpower. It's a human superpower, and there is nothing bad about it. And it is freaking amazing. That's a quote, by the way, from a social worker. It's freaking amazing, Glory.
Which is why everyone in the psychology world was so upset and has essentially almost canceled M. Night Shyamalan over
Split.
his character, was split. Because that is not the reality. And if,
identities.
if anything, he should know better too. And he did that knowingly. No, that's not how that works.
So yeah, I could definitely see your character befriending a boy who lives in the same house, and but like because of her need. We're talking about a human girl. I'm assuming here. Then she would work very hard to separate him from the associations, all her negative associations with the house and the abuser. And yes, even to the point of putting him on a pedestal when he doesn't necessarily deserve to be on a pedestal, because children are still selfish little imps. I mean, they're children. They have little child minds, and the amygdala is still forming, so they are impulsive. And yeah, all children are self-centered. That's how humans survive. That's why we are still here as a species, because children are self-centered, so they're more likely to think about themselves first in a survival situation. So, but that can be a problem when we're talking about friendship. So yes, she would definitely, I would say, very, very likely, befriend him and separate him in her mind from it. But there would be this little voice, this inkling, this terror in the back of her head anytime he's around, because whether she wants to consciously acknowledge it or not, he is still associated with the terror house. Everything is urgent. Human girl, the boy would fall asleep to the crying of a mystery girl and whisper nice things to her through the floor. Yes. Oh, yeah. He didn't know there was a real girl, thought it was a ghost or something. Yep. So, yeah, she would definitely, put him on a pedestal, more than likely. Mm-hmm. But also, like, therefore, when you have someone on a pedestal, you demand superhuman expectations from them. Like, why haven't you saved me yet? Didn't you automatically know? That is how the pedestal works. It is unreasonable admiration, and it is unreasonable expectations. That is how the pedestal works with humans. So, okay, where were we? Oh, I guess, is it time to do a timer?
It's getting close, yeah.
I have
why don't we go a little bit? Yeah.
I have a special timer.
Yeah, should we take a 10-minute?
Yes, let's take a 10 minutes. Okay. Let's see which, okay. I know which timer.
Yeah, Laura, the pedestal is very important because it essentially also means that they're always set up for failure. Because no human can be perfect and can think and can, no human's telepathic, so they don't know what the other person's actually thinking they need and want.
Boom. I thought it would be very appropriate today, with the PTSD stuff, that we have a cute puppies timer. By the way, I could not find a good cute kitties timer or cat timer. So if anybody can find like a 10-minute cute cat timer, please let me know and share a link. Anyway, so is everybody ready to do a quick little 10-minute? You could write, you could hydrate, you could go get some comfort food, you go find that weighted blanket, or journal your thoughts and feelings, or draw, or hold your stuffy. Go get the stuffy, your favorite stuffed animal. Laura says, what about until my puppy is ready to be picked up? I know, I saw that video. It's so amazing. So, but I would love other cute timers. So if anybody can find, particularly the 10-minute timers, we like the 10-minute timers here. If anybody can find some cute 10-minute timers or feel like making some, we would be so grateful. So, in 3, 2, 1. Sprint. Beep, 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 beep. You've made it back. Yay. Everybody's made it back. Woohoo.
And we've
Those
got a
puppies,
few more people.
those puppies are so cute. Hi, doll. Yes, I understand. Everyone else in the chat is like,
It's why we're doing this one today.
yes, because Maggie's like, do PTSD recovery. Maggie says, hello, Maggie. I made it. Yes. Trauma of the day, driving on icy, barely plowed roads between drifts as high as my daughter's car to get to the feed store.
Ooh, that's
rough. That's terrible. Remember driving the drunken ballerina?
Oh, yeah. That is hard on the adrenal glands.
It is. It is very
and
hard.
the arms and back.
Yes. Oh, particularly the back. Yes. Which, real quick, fun fact. So if you've ever experienced PTSD, we now know that you're also more likely to experience PTSD in the future. So there's a way to help that. As you experience PTSD, you'll start like getting more familiar with what kinds of events are more likely to be traumatic for you, you know, in the post. And so there are two things the U.S. military, after millions, possibly billions of dollars of research, have figured out to lessen the effects of PTSD. It is required. You have to do it literally within preferably 4 hours of the traumatic inciting incident, but within the first 24 hours, ideally. And that is, number one, take an Nsaid. Well, I say Nsaid. An Nsaid like ibuprofen or Aleve, but also Tylenol does work. They've tested that. So even though I believe Tylenol is not an Nsaid.
Correct. It's not an Nsaid.
Flavor, it does still work. They've tried this out. So first off, take something. Aspirin counts. Ideally, if it was like a physical trauma, like a car accident, you wouldn't necessarily want to take an aspirin because it's a blood thinner. But you take an Nsaid or Tylenol. You don't have to take a high dose. It's just one pill's fine. And then Dr. Gloria's prescribing, because of the U.S. military's research, you need to play 1 to 2 hours of a repetitive game, such as match 3 games, Tetris, solitaire, even no, not crossword,
Sudoku.
No, you need repetitive. The where you circle the word.
Yeah, find a word.
Find a word. Some of the nonograms, but like essentially something that's constantly repeating, such as match 3 games. Were what was initially tested and found to be highly effective for soldiers in combat situations for helping their brain process through the trauma. Yes, they were essentially taking, for real, an ibuprofen and playing 2 hours of match 3 games. And they found that soldiers were dramatically less likely to experience specific PTSD related to that event. So like for years, because they'd follow it. So it was like 10 years. If you're not experiencing it within 5 to 10 years, you're not likely to experience PTSD from that specific event. And yes, you can experience PTSD literally years later and not have anything in between, because it's like a psychological enchantment. Maggie says, I have it regularly and have had it since I was 10, and years of therapy have made it manageable, and behavioral training keeps the instinct from acting before the brain can process. Excellent. But yeah, I just want to point out, I have tried it out myself, and it really does help keep the PTSD away. When people are prejudiced, when they're rude and terrible, when they say homophobic things or misogynistic things that would keep echoing in my mind for weeks or months later.
Or when you're almost in a shootout at a pizza place.
Yeah, that was 2 Thursdays ago.
Yeah.
We were, trying to just get a pizza for DoorDash. So it's, you take one Nsaid and you play 2 hours of a repetitive game, not a first-person shooter game. The military did test this out. First-person shooter games, while they can be repetitive, do not actually lessen the likelihood of it becoming PTSD. It needs to be a non-violent, repetitive game, such as those match 3 games. So, yay, PTSD. I see Charlie's like, PTSD Black Party. Yeah, Stevie's right. It's word search. You know, those where you're just circling all the words you see. Yes. Yes, Maggie. My, initial several PTSD events came from abuse from, let's see, I mean, my first pedophile was when I was 2. So, it started young and it went on forever. I mean, if anything, the death of both my parents has been a blessing for me. But you're more likely to experience PTSD from new events if you've ever already been diagnosed with it, or not diagnosed. Diagnosis is not actually required for this one. If you've had it, you're more likely to experience it again because it means that's how your brain works. And so all I'm saying is just take an ibuprofen or your Nsaid of your choice and go play some, repetitive games for a couple hours.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, building houses works. A bunch of Minecraft. Hi, Eva. Hey, sweetie. So I just wanted to give that quick tip because, I'm all about the functional. Is thankfully we actually now know how to help people. We can't necessarily help them with past trauma, like childhood traumas that don't get addressed even by a medical personnel for years or not decades. But at least, we have this knowledge to help people move forward in their lives so they're not worried about future adult events becoming post-traumatic flashback situations. So, yes. Hi to Mama. Definitely building buildings in Valheim. It is, I think, if I recall how people were building houses, it is rather repetitive. And you can kind of get lost in it, and you're just doing the same thing over and over. And it's not violent. It's not aggressive. And so, yes, very likely. PTSD by proxy. Yes, it is. It is very real.
That's why, the definition said, or something you see.
Something you witnessed.
Like, it does not have to be directly.
Well, and it's not even necessarily that you had to visually witness it. If somebody is telling you about what just happened to them and it's a loved one or someone who lives with you and you're like, oh my God, even that where you're suddenly intensely worried because they were, say nearly injured or nearly in a gunfight is potentially very traumatic.
I mean, it's why the Twin Towers 9/11 is, traumatized so many people, even though so few people were in New York. So few people were, even saw it initially on film when it was happening live.
Yep, I did.
But still, it did leave a lasting scar.
Right. Yes. So, we were just talking during the break about what to talk about next. And I was like, I feel like I should mention the whole science. And unfortunately, a lot of soldier struggles have now, they do have an immediate treatment that does help. And for someone like me who does have PTSD and it's like peace of mind to know there's something I can do that lessens the likelihood that I will be experiencing PTSD in the future from events that happen in my life. And that has been helpful. Does it work perfectly? No, nothing works perfectly, especially when you're dealing with human bodies and human brains. But it's like, it really does help. Yes, Stardew being very repetitive, I would definitely say so. And in
Real
fact, that's
quick,
why the military, the med tents in combat zones have military-issued Game Boys. I'm not making this up. This is for reals.
yeah.
It's, oh, did you witness an IED go off? Here, take this ibuprofen, and here's your Game Boy. You are required by the government to play this for a minimum of 2 hours. And if you give the nurse crap or the med crap, the med tech, you're going to have to play for 4 hours. I've literally heard that from soldiers of like being threatened with playing 4 hours of Game Boy game.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, oh, you poor thing that you weren't allowed to go back. And they're like, you're like, please let's end all this toxic macho-ness.
And we were talking yesterday
It's not helping.
About, Glory noticed how many people were all of a sudden at the end of, World Write-A-thon playing Stardew Valley and were nonverbal. And it's because it's something we do instinctually.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a traumatic event, even if you put yourself through it,
like college.
Like everyone who's like, I'm going to write for 36 hours straight. Who needs sleep?
Who needs sleep?
You were talking about how part of the effects of trauma, the immediate effects of trauma, is that your nervous system has suddenly so much extra static noise in it.
Literally, the electricity in your neurons are just firing, and they're not in rhythm anymore. So it's like noise to your mind and body. And that's where sometimes when people are essentially initially experiencing the trauma or right after, I don't mean like a month later, I mean like right after, well, technically a month later, is when they're feeling all of this neurological noise. Sometimes people get the zoomies, just like animals and children. They'll just run around, or they'll play a lot of heavy metal and jump up and down at home, or they'll go out for that, or they go literally jogging or anything that you're like, wow, that person has so much energy. I feel exhausted watching them. So what people instinctively do, especially if they don't know that what their mind is trying to deal with is trauma, is they're feeling all this misfiring going on. And they have this internal feeling of not only anxiety, but like everything feels sensitized, everything is overwhelmed. And what people do instinctively is they try to get their outside environment to match their inside environment. And I mean like inside their mind and body environment match their external environment. And so that's where you see people with the zoomies when they're running around, or they're just running themselves ragged till they like literally physically collapse from exhaustion. So they workaholic. They go and they frankly they act like they're on cocaine without any drugs.
But where we saw everyone during lockdown all of a sudden needing to bake constantly, like for hours and hours and hours, they're just baking, they're prepping.
Ain't nobody that hungry. Ain't nobody that hungry.
But it's so they have something to do that's repetitive because you're trying to match to the internal to the external.
Mm-hmm. And distracting. That is the other thing that people will instinctively try to do immediately after trauma is just distract themselves from thinking about it, from processing through it. So it's understandable they need a mental break. And what they'll try to do is they're trying to bring a sense of normality back. People have this, hence, the soldiers with this need of like, no, I need to go back out there. My men are depending on me. And the medic's like, no, you have to play more Game Boy. Is because when people have experienced trauma, they have this incredibly strong desire to immediately return to normalcy. And so if their idea of normality is going out and doing more rounds with their platoon or their squad, then that's what they want to do. If their idea of normality is baking and making a cozy home, then that's what they're going to do. Whatever their personal idea at that time, whatever their normal is, that's what they want to do. If their normality is working long hours, then they're going to just throw themselves into work. They have this need to essentially regain control of their environment. And they're going to do it with distracting. It's just how human psychology works.
And another part that is also very normal for shortly thereafter is I was seeing a doll write about, she didn't go through all of the write-a-thon trying to take care of herself, but, her body's in pain today. Of one of the other side effects of just being highly stressed for any period of time is that you don't realize the literal tension you carry in all your muscles. They stay tight. You don't even realize that they're staying tight. And so the moment you can start to relax, you'll suddenly start going, why do I hurt so much? And it's because you didn't realize how much all of the body was hurting itself, holding that tension to keep the body feeling the same as what's in the mind.
It's true.
Another thing I did want you to talk about is, all right, so where does it go from just, how we all handle a traumatic situation?
Okay.
To
we talked about.
When does it become a
PTSD?
PTSD disorder? When does it actually disorder?
So the general idea of what PTSD is a person has experienced a traumatic event, and then at some point they were able to return to all their normal routines, whatever that was, work, school, whatever. And they're feeling pretty good. They're feeling pretty safe. Everything's great. And so there's this chunk of time where they look like the before the trauma time. They're doing their normal things. They're doing their normal hobbies. It's going pretty well, relatively speaking. And then, bam. It's like the trauma happened that day. It's fresh. The flashbacks start really going where it is like, okay, look, y'all know I'm a Whovian, so just bear with me with my, Doctor Who reference. But, it was the Cup of Soup episode. Was that the 50th anniversary one? You remember with both Matt Smith and David Tennant and the Doctor of War showed up?
50th anniversary.
Yeah. And they are suddenly at a certain point. I don't want to spoil anything for those who might one day want to enjoy it. I have my hope of getting you all into Who, but I respect your choices not to. But there's a certain point where they're suddenly in a painting, but it's a Time Lord painting. And it's like in 3D, except they're in it, is what it seems like. It seems like it's happening around them, only nobody can see them. Because essentially it's a recording. And they're like, what is happening? What is this? Are we in the middle of a war? Did we get transported here? That is pretty much what flashbacks feel like. Is like suddenly you're in it again. And like, I can honestly tell you some of my flashbacks, particularly in the early years, it was like an overlay onto real life. So I knew where I was, but there was a disorienting experience in the early days. It's not quite so vivid anymore. But when I say vivid, these were freaking vivid. So vivid flashbacks, nightmares, and of course, the physical symptoms of anxiety, the heart pounding like it's going to burst in your chest, where, people have mistaken that for a heart attack. The physical symptoms, along with the headache and dizziness, because there's definitely blood pressure fluctuations in both directions, which is really not good for the body. It's quite bad. And of course, it feels absolutely terrible to happen. There's also tends to be blood sugar fluctuations too, which can really make people feel almost hungover. And that's what, like, everything was normal. Everything was going fine. I got my sleep schedule back. I wasn't having any of the trauma. And then all of a sudden, bam, I'm in the trauma again. And every time I hear a loud noise, I'm in it. Every time I hear a child cough, I'm at whatever, the triggers are that had to do with where the trauma is from. Every time I hear a man sigh, I'm back in it. That's what, like, even when I've been in support group with other people with PTSD, that's like the kind of things you just hear this litany of again and again and again. As well as the nightmares. The nightmares, you just wake up covered in sweat. Your heart is pounding. And you're like, what just happened? Even for people who normally don't have vivid dreams. It is intense. And so what is it? What's happening? Okay. The brain is trying its best to process the trauma. And that means reliving it. Because the brain is still trying to figure out what happened. And how can we make ourselves safe? But the brain is not going to do that till you feel safe. Hence there's a period of normality. I have heard from some people that their normality period was like literally a week. They did not get the 1 month that I think at least used to be in the DSM. I don't know if it still is. But like there's a period. Some people, it's not a month, it's years. And sometimes that had to do with that they didn't feel safe for quite a long time. So there are people who might not experience the PTSD. Like they certainly have had lots of traumatic events, particularly queer folks. Definitely have experienced plenty of traumatic events, might not be experiencing the PTSD of it till they feel safe. And that could take years sometimes. And so that's why, like you hear, like, for instance, soldiers, where so much of the initial research was done, soldiers wouldn't experience it till a couple weeks or months after they got home. A lot of the times was because they didn't feel safe till they were home. They were still hyper vigilant. They were still felt like they were on while still on duty. It wasn't until they came home. So, but it's not required to be home to experience that. It just has to do with you have to feel safe and feel like everything's normal and your life is predictable and you're just living your routines and your mind essentially has enough processing power because everything's running smoothly in your life. And then when your mind's like, well, I've got a little extra processing power, I guess it's time to process this trauma. And you're like, no, but I want my life to be great. It's like, no, you have to process this. These are the rules. I did not make these rules. These are the human psychology rules. Really, the human brain rules. So Maggie says, in the writing community, there are those who are very toxic and turn the love of writing into a traumatic thing by shaming or mocking or bullying others. Oh, girl. Preach it. It is mental abuse and can cause real trauma. I agree. Afterward, when the attacked person tries to write or create, they find themselves suffering anxiety, depression, and physically sick at the thought of sharing their creation. It is very hard to break. I agree. In fact, a lot of why I'm only just now sharing my poems has to do with other people's bullying of me, including my mother, about my poetry when I was a late teen and in my early 20s. Because up until like me sharing the link with Eva so she could read them, Tom had never even read most of them. It was my girlfriend, my now ex-husband, my mother, and my psychologist. They were the only ones who had read them up until that point. It was all at the same time back that long ago. And because of my girlfriend and my mother's bullying and abusive words they said about my poetry, that's why Tom had never even read them. I was like, I am not about to give this to anyone else that I love and respect for them to say ugly things about me. So, and I did not really write poems for decades. I've only just started getting back into it here. Because of this supportive, wonderful community. I'm literally talking about you. If you are here in the chat, I'm literally talking about you. If you are lurking, I'm probably talking about you. I see the watch numbers. So, so yes, yeah. Eva got to see them before Tom. It is true. But yeah, it had to do with abuse, and it totally put me off poem writing. To those of you who have gotten to hear them or read them, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something from it anyway.
Quick aside, of the, I've really started to notice this in our friendship, at least especially this past year, well, past couple years, of the let's look at your past again. Now let's look at it with what we know now.
Yes.
And just like, you know, my joking with you about you're straight, but how many girls have you kissed? You know, then you're going, wait a minute. Ooh, your poetry was the same thing as you're looking back, because you wrote poems in part when you were with that therapist as a way actually to avoid therapy sessions.
Yes, I did. Okay, I literally paid $9 a session for this therapist because there's a, you know, a government subsidized clinic that does did sliding scale psychotherapy, like with fully accredited psychologists and psychiatrists. And I told y'all I went there to learn coping skills, but she was like, well, you have to tell me what's going on for me to tell you how to cope. Like, it's a trap. And and I went like at least several times a month. So I didn't necessarily go every single week, but like I went, you know, I think it was like 45 times in 18 months sessions. And because like $9 was still a rough, I had to make a lot of sacrifices in order to do that. But like you're there for 50 freaking minutes and she wants to talk about all my deep, dark secrets and all the things going wrong in my life. And I don't want to talk about it because I have to look at another human being and say, yes, I'm miserable and I let people do this to me and I let people treat me like crap. And also I'm trapped and I can't get out of it. And I have to have this terrible boss and da-da-da. So, and like, she was like, well, why don't you ever want to talk when we're in therapy? And this was like early days. And I said, well, I forget about it, which is true. I mean, I do have ADHD. And she said, well, then this is what I'm going to tell you. You need to keep a journal and then just bring your journal in and then I could read through it. And I was like, oh, great. And the more I wrote in the journal, the longer she read, and it would eat into that 50-minute time. So then I started writing more and more things for her. And then I started like doing poetry for her. Cause like I would just stuff it in the journal and hello.
Yeah.
And that was like, and so like I was writing enough poetry and essays about my feelings and my thoughts and everything that it would take her 20 to 30 minutes to read it all each week or so, or every other week. And it was so like, we'd only have 20 to 30 minutes to talk, which, you know, then she would have to talk about what was in there. And like, then we've eaten up the whole time. And so I didn't have to have any real face-to-face conversation. And that was how I got out. I mean, like, look, I was 19. It's the only thing I can tell you. I was 1920.
Yes. But the reason I bring it up is because of, you know, when we look back at things much, you know, later. And so we're now able to kind of put ourselves in other people's places a little bit easier from experience. And one of the things you noticed is that she would, you know, with you there, go walk to the photocopier, and she photocopied only some of the poems. And you realize later, wait, she just liked my poems.
Yes.
She was just photocopying her favorite pieces.
Mm-hmm. Like she photocopied all the poems that she photocopied with my express permission. I was like, oh, no problem. I had at the time thought she was putting it in my file for reference because she took extensive notes. She was like, you know, she was a really good psychologist.
Well, she was normally a family therapist, so she had to deal with several people at once.
Yeah. You
were actually a semi-unique case for her.
I was. Yeah, she normally didn't take individuals. But I was such an interesting case because apparently I was the first person in her entire career who'd ever gone to seek therapy to learn coping skills. So she was very interested in me. And
but you realize, like,
But
wait a minute,
now,
she
as I
liked
was
my
typing
work.
them up, I know which ones that she photocopied because of how good my memory is. My memory gets great when I'm under stress. It's terrible when I'm happy. And I know which one she photocopied. And I was like looking at which ones, and I'm like, I'm seeing a pattern. Yeah. Like she was a fan. Like some of the poems made her cry. Literally, she cried. It not like it like huge weeping, but just like a couple tears. And at the time I was very intensely uncomfortable with that because I was on my journey and I wasn't yet comfortable with my own emotions. So I definitely wasn't comfortable with other people's emotions, particularly if it's about something I wrote, then it would make me want to cry. Right. So how weird is, and now I'm like, because she would photocopy, but she didn't put all the photocopies in my folder because she would always have my file with her for our sessions. She was just putting some on the outside. I think she was taking those home because some of them are love poems. Apparently she had mentioned her husband loves poetry. I think she was sharing them with him, which that's fine. I don't mind. She'd asked me if she could take one home one time. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Just, don't tell other people I wrote it. She's like, not a problem. So, anyway. One wanted me to focus on getting into a romantic relationship. I would love to be in one, but it needs to be with the right person. I agree. It is hard to find the right person.
You know what? I don't know if it's the right entire place. I can't remember if we talked this before and getting excited about movies, but let's real quick take it aside for one of our favorite movies about more realistic therapy and, getting decent therapy and trying to recover. The Sandra Bullock movie, 28 Days.
What about it?
Well, remember, among other things, our favorite little ending with Alan Tudyk.
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh, yes. Okay. Oh, I do love that movie. Yes, about addiction recovery, specifically. And yeah, Alan Tudyk, and how in rehab they were encouraged to like before you get into a relationship, get a plant, keep it alive for a year. If you're able to keep it alive and healthy for an entire year, then it's time to get a pet. And you need to keep that alive and healthy for like 2 to 3 years. And this was aimed at people in addiction recovery. But if after 2 to 3 years your pet is happy and healthy, then maybe it's a time to start dating. Because a relationship is not unlike keeping plants and animals happy and healthy and long living. I mean, because you do have to tend a relationship.
You have to think about others and their needs. But you also need appropriate boundaries where everyone's getting taken care of. Not just the plant and the pet, but also yourself. You have to be able to balance them. And, truly one of those real coping skills is knowing how to safely state your boundaries. I mean, the old adage is true of good fences make good neighbors, because everyone is aware of where the demarcation is. And so everyone can feel safe in their own space. But yeah, like I would just say about 28 Days does have some good pieces about, working on recovery.
Yeah, I thought it portrayed a lot of psychology rather accurately, not necessarily ideally, but accurately. I do have many issues.
It's not easy. It's a constant process. It doesn't just, once it's fixed, it's done forever. You never have to look back.
I do have some genuine concerns with how rehabilitation is established here in America. There are some serious institutional and inherent concerns with it. But all of that aside, there are some nuggets in the movie. And also, it's just kind of a fun movie. For me, anyway. It might not be fun for everyone else. Being adult children of alcoholics. It was fun to watch alcoholics struggle. I'm not proud of that. So, anyway, the biggest issue with me is that my frustration turns inward. No psychologist I have seen knows how to fix that. Oh, it's called compassion. Tom, talk to us about how that long road goes.
It's so long. It's so very, very long. Compassion is not easy to learn if you didn't learn it young.
Yeah.
But compassion is a great salve for most problems. Because you can, in friendships, you can actually mess up a lot, even, traumatically mess up. But if people understand and can see the compassion you are coming from, they're not worried that you're going to repeat it.
Compassion keeps us open. It keeps our minds flexible. Compassion helps us as humans to pivot when we see that there's a problem with our own approach to anything. Compassion makes it easier to pivot. And I mean, when I say compassion, I'm meaning loving compassion.
Yes.
There needs to be love behind that compassion. But yeah, compassion really does smooth over a lot of our imperfections because it helps us mature beyond those. It's like it can just fill in all the other gaps in, like, maybe I'm not as aware of other people's cues as anyone would love me to be, including myself. But my compassion still helps me become aware of people's cues because I'm checking to see how they're doing, and inadvertently I'm then noticing cues. It can take on, it can almost mimic a lot of other qualities.
Yeah.
In the short term. Yeah. Trauma recovery is you're never totally done with trauma recovery. It's an ongoing, y'all. The part I'm looking forward to today is I want to talk about Blizzard chips. Because that's the part I want to talk about eventually today. Is my favorite part of, like, literally decades down in my PTSD recovery road of it's a party. When you get this far, PTSD recovery becomes a party. And it's so freaking fun.
I'll say, going back real quick to what Maggie was saying about the writers and the trauma.
Yes.
So the difference between just suffering from PTSD and being on PTSD recovery is the difference is not even the behaviors. Truth be told, actually, you do a lot of the same behaviors. But it's, do you go into the behaviors compassionately and like, yeah, this is what I need? Or are you still ashamed of your behaviors and guilting yourself and essentially re-traumatizing? Keeping that PTSD fuel fresh. Versus recovery is letting that fuel spend itself out. And, finding appropriate boundaries. And some of those appropriate boundaries is self-care, as Dahl was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, self-care can take the forms including of, Blizzard chips, ice cream, karaoke parties, dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Of it's treating yourself. And it's, even triggering yourself. But it's doing it knowingly and purposefully.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between, suffering and recovering. But guess what? It's the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we all do it. Because we all have human minds. It's just part of a human mind.
We all do what? The recovery part? Or?
We all do, yeah. we all do these similar things in how we trigger and how we cope.
Mm.
You know, we, I mean, when I had a car wreck 6, 7, 8 years ago, 8, I guess, where I flipped the car into a stream and the water was coming up.
Yeah, it was raining. It was actively storming when Tom did it. I wasn't in the car. I was at home, and that was the only car we had at the time.
And unfortunately, it was on the road between the apartment we lived at and our stepdad's. So it wasn't one I could really easily avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was fine for a little bit, and then afterwards, I start reliving randomly the moments of having that wreck. So I had to literally just sort of let go of the steering wheel a bit and take my foot off the accelerator as I was going around that corner, because I didn't want to accidentally respond to the overlay instead of the reality.
Good point.
But, I had to keep functioning.
Yeah.
And so I coped by, making sure, no one was too close behind me. And when I was getting close, I'd take my foot off the accelerator and just sort of glide through my little point of trauma.
Yeah.
And go on. But I know I'm going to have it. But I'm not upset of why can't I get past this? Like, well, this is part of my brain right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully this will lighten up eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is storming, instead of it being clear day, it's like, well, I'm not going on that road.
Yeah.
I will go visit another day.
That's what I said. I was like, you don't have to go when the roads are slick.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be okay. If he really wants to see us, he can drive over here.
But but the difference being, I'm not guilty or shaming myself about it. It's just this is part of me. So it did lighten up over time because I wasn't refueling it every time.
So, yeah, what one of my therapists said is shame stalls healing. The thing to remember is to not spawn new shame. So to not make yourself feel ashamed because you are experiencing PTSD symptoms. Not to like, oh, I can't believe I'm still hung up on this after all these years. Not to like shame ourselves for what we're experiencing or how we're still processing or we're still getting triggered after all these years, or internalizing other people trying to shame us for our triggers, for our experiences. Oh, I can't believe you're still talking about this trauma after all these years. Move on, bitch. You move on. You could like try to listen, but if you can't, you need to leave. Anyway, I have so many. You can tell when I get a certain way, I start cursing. So apologies, but I love to curse, and it's all I can do to not curse on this show sometimes.
And remember, cursing is beneficial for women.
I know. It's a pain reliever for women in particular. Give it a try. Okay. So to me at least, the first step to PTSD recovery, once you realize this is what you're dealing with, once you've experienced even one flashback, even one traumatic nightmare, is you've got to address the shame, and you've got to do whatever it takes to not keep reshaming yourself, and certainly not allow other people to shame you about this. Because you're not going to get far in your recovery even years later. Time will march on and you will still not get further in your recovery if you are still shadowboxing shame. So that is my advice on that. That is based on other therapists, other highly, licensed professional psychology experts, of there is no room for shame in your recovery path, in your recovery journey. And if there's anything we can do to help you with that, including be the auntie and uncle of like, you know, playing the compassionate, the loving, compassionate role for you of like, why, yes, I would be happy to meet with you StreamYard backstage or on Zoom or some other video chat where you literally voice all the ugly things in your head that keep going round and around, shaming you, and then we will voice all the compassionate things so that maybe you can help rewrite those old tapes. I guess I shouldn't say tapes anymore because the young people don't even know what that is.
The playlist, the Spotify playlist.
Reprogram your playlist. Yeah. Of the old lines for new lines, new, more compassionate lines. And anytime you obsessively hear an old line, you start obsessively playing one of the compassionate new lines. It is that important. It really is. And just as Eva said, PTSD kills. It really does.
Yes.
It's right up there with loneliness, and loneliness can actually be a symptom because PTSD is really good at isolating people from all the supportive people and services that may be able to help them, but definitely the supportive people. Whether they don't know them yet or they already have supportive people and they're isolating themselves from them, excuse me, remains to be seen. But PTSD is really, really great at isolating ourselves from it. Yeah, let's workshop some kind things instead of all the hard things.
And really, if people ever want us to, one of the things that also is a good boundary exercise for people like us who are all, you know, creative expressionists, is it is perfectly fine and acceptable to tell someone, I want you to, you know, read some work of mine or look at some work of mine, but I'm already kind of down about myself. I only want to hear the positive about this right now. Or I want to hear what your idea is for why this isn't quite meshing. You know, I'm not here to hear any negatives. I'm here, you know, I want to workshop it. Or I just want to hear what is it that works about it. I want to know it's not just me imagining that there is something fun here. What is it you find fun? It's fine to ask for those. It's fine to state those.
Particularly with other people who are familiar with this.
Yeah.
Oh boy, can I tell, like, when I end up in a group of people and none of them have ever really experienced anxiety before, and I say something that's like, you know, let's be honest, one of those anxious tapes, one of those anxious lines, y'all have all heard this. If you've ever watched this show, you've heard my anxiety lines before. And instead of people being like, oh, it's okay, you're here among friends, you're safe, instead they're like, oh, huh, what? No, that's weird. Yeah. So it helps if you reach out to somebody who has also like experienced negative internal thoughts about their own work, so they understand when you're like, I need help with this. I need maybe some editorial workshopping help with this. But I also am already down on myself, so I need just the nice words, if that helps. Or so they understand, like, I need your help, but I need it like context. I need it couched. Yeah. You know what? Recovery is at your own pace. What I'm trying to say about shame is shame will slow down whatever your pace is. It's like grief. Everybody grieves and processes their grief in their own way at their own pace. And that is the exactly great, perfect pace for you. And no one else has any say about if that pace is too fast, too slow, just right. It's nobody's business. It's not their business. It's the exact just right pace for you. But shame will slow that down. So let's do what we can to address the impediments to our healing journeys.
I mean, one thing I always remember about everyone has their own paces, and that I still don't see a lot of people ever recognize is like when our mother passed away. Glory had, long since finished her grief about her mother passing away. A year or two before our mom even passed away. Because it wasn't her first cancer either. Like, she had gone through and thought all this. I hadn't as much. I had not actually been there as much with our mother through her previous cancers. But I also could recognize in myself, I was aware enough that when she did die, I wasn't crying, but it wasn't because I wasn't grieving the loss of her. It's just my brain was still kind of in shock, and it still just wasn't even ready to process it. And Glory could see that. It's like, yeah, I know. There's not much I can do right now, but it is what it is. And truth be told, it took 3 years for my brain to finally be okay. I mean, in part because we were in such an unsteady place in time. It took several years for me to feel safe and comfortable enough to then start processing it. But so, 3 years after my mother passed, that I started, that I started actually processing that grief. It's not something that's immediate. Everyone doesn't immediately process any loss or any trauma or anything.
It was 9 months after Mom died before Tom would even admit, just to me, that he was like, he might be grieving the loss of our mother. Might.
Yeah,
and I was like, no shit, Sherlock. Of course you're. Even I am, because what was that? 5 months before, I literally remember we stood on opposite ends of the kitchen table, and I yelled, not at Tom, but like in general in the room, because it had these great acoustics, of I am so mad at Mom for dying. She was my arch nemesis, and who am I without my arch nemesis? Damn it, this bitch! I'm just screaming for like 20 minutes into the beautiful echo chamber. I'm like, this is how Superman felt when Lex Luthor died. I literally did do this. Of like, of course, like, I mean, I am a very overly dramatic person, but I think it's fun. So
kind of.
I hope you all find it charming, because I enjoy doing it. Doesn't everybody assume they're the superhero, not the supervillain? Anyway, Maggie says, asking for only positive feedback is okay. And if someone refuses to do so, even after you explain why you need it, step away. Even if they are begging to read it. They aren't wanting to help you. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Maggie's got it.
Yeah, I think Karen, who was talking about earlier it was Maggie who was earlier talking about, let me see if I can find it real quick, about one of the ways to keep the fuel going. Oh yeah, there it is.
Another thing people do to keep refueling the PTSD source embers is keeping people in their lives they know are toxic in their lives because of the investment made into previous relationship. Time or connection does not entitle anyone to be given a pass for continuing to cause harm to a hurt person. Agreed.
Yeah, one of the what are they called? All these common phrases we know, and except everyone only says the first half of these.
Oh, these truncated things.
Yeah.
Like blood is thicker than water, but it's actually the blood of
the compact is
I thought it was
thicker than the water of the womb.
Or the fraternal. Anyway, but yeah, the blood of the compact is thicker than water of the womb.
No, it's the families you make that are stronger, but even they are only while they work. If there's a reason why they talk about friendships are a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah,
there's many different reasons we are friends with people, and it's okay if we stop being friends if they are no longer helpful to your life, especially if they start causing problems.
Be in your life.
Yeah.
Got another story rejection. So many. Just have to keep on chugging along, I guess. So, okay. Yes, Laura's right.
Everyone else knows the phrase correctly. Blood of the covenant.
Okay, so I'm gonna just give you all right. Y'all know that my relationship with my mother was complicated. And there were certainly many troubled things. But sometimes she did have moments of aw. I mean, Glory cackles as she's wearing Red Queen makeup and hair today. Yes. So obviously feeling my Disney villain. Anyway, what was I saying? Something about, okay. So this is a piece of advice from my mother, Laura. My mother said she worked this out with Cousin Marilyn. Oh, y'all, I should tell you sometime about Cousin Marilyn. Anyway. So Mom and Cousin Marilyn were approximately the same age. I think, was it Cousin Marilyn like 2 or 3 years older than Mom?
Yeah, it's like 2 years.
They grew up together. They literally grew up like a couple houses down from each other. Along with David and, was it Richard was the other one? They were all, anyway. This is not important to story. So anyway, Mom and Cousin Marilyn essentially went bar hopping together. And it was the 60s. And Marilyn was determined to marry a doctor for her first husband. Okay. So they would hang out at bars near hospitals. Because apparently doctors don't like to go far for a drink. All right. And being the kind of women that these two women were, because Marilyn has also passed away, they kept records of everyone they dated, everyone they kissed, how relationships worked out. And at some point, about, I think, what was it, year 3 or 4 of this, because this was pretty much their entire 20s. Mom didn't marry Dad till she was like, 31 or something? And she had me when she was 33. And I'm the eldest. And I think Cousin Marilyn got married the first time when she was like in her late 20s, like 27 or 28, I want to say. If I remember correctly. Well, anyway, so 3 or 4 years into this, they crunched the numbers on their stats, and they figured out, and I'm dead serious, y'all. This sounds insane to me, but you have to kiss 50 frogs to find a prince. They are frogs being apparently men. It's so embarrassing. They kiss 50 people to find one prince or princess. However, this is what they found. It's not necessarily your prince you find. You might find a prince for your friend, or a princess for your friend, or a Prince X. Should we go with for non-binary? I think that would be a Prince X.
Prince X. Mm-hmm.
Prince X. I like it. So, you have to kiss 50 before you find a Prince X. It does not mean that it's necessarily your Prince X. It could be one of your friends, and so they would then network the few princesses they would find and distribute appropriately. And then, so several friends did get married to people that had originally snogged this friend girl group, members of the friend girl group. Okay. And so that was Mom's point of, you have to date a lot to find anyone worth anything of quality. And even then, they might not be the right one for you. They may be right for one of your friends. So, pay it forward, pass that one on, and then keep going. And then, in theory, everyone will do the same for you. I took that approach when I was selling adult toys, and I had a home party business. And in fact, I started my own minor home party empire. But anyway, that's a whole another story. And we did find that we did not even need to get 50 no's to get a yes. But we did, what was it? It was like 23 no's to get a yes for a party?
20 to 23.
Yeah. Because we started all crunching the numbers, because I had a whole fleet of salespeople who did home parties as well. I had a lot of salespeople all over the South who were doing home parties. And we crunched the numbers of every person we asked, would you like to host a party at your house? And I will come and I will do my sales thing of the toys. And it was approximately 20 no's for every yes. So I trained everybody to think of every no as getting you that much closer to a yes. Of every no is a good thing. It means you have gotten that much closer to your yes. So if anything, go ask more often. And when they say no, say, okay, if you do happen to know of anybody you might know who might be interested, please give them my card, or please give them this sample that has my contact information on the other side. Yes, we did give out samples with stickers on them. It was great. Everyone appreciated those. And that was how we got home parties, because you could easily make like gross sales. Most home parties were a minimum of $350 gross. They averaged about $400 or $500. So yeah, I would say mine were more like $500, but more the new salespeople, it was more like $400 average for a party gross. And then the salespeople took home about, out of say $400, $175 was each salesperson. So each party, even for a new person, would take home in cash $175. So I was like, so out of every 20 no's, figure out how many that is per dollar. That's what you're going to make. And if you look at it that way, of like all these rejections is just getting you that much closer to a yes, to an acceptance. Also, I do want to point out, for all I know, you're already doing this, but I'm just going to say it just in case. I don't want to make that assumption that you're already doing it if you get a rejection, if possible, follow up and say, thank you so much. If you happen to ever have an idea of who might be interested in this story, please let me know, or give that person my contact information. I would absolutely love to help this story find a home. Not everybody is interested in helping you out, but that's how we got a lot of parties. Was about a quarter of all the no's turned out to be referrals to someone they knew who did want to do a party. So I'm just throwing that out there.
By the way, you hit 200 subscribers.
Oh, I did? Oh, awesome. I saw that, and I thought that was in reference to how many rejections Laura's gotten. And I'm no. Good freaking Lord. I mean,
no, it's something else.
That's like, Laura, you got a heart of steel. Congratulations. I admire you. And also, yes, you need that puppy. Hold that puppy tight. Hold it tight and sniff its little head every time you get a rejection. All right, that's what I would do anyway.
Yeah, but your puppy literally smelled like a cookie.
And corn chips. Dachshunds are prone to a particular kind of foot fungus that makes their little paws smell like corn chips. No matter how many times you bathe them, when they dry, they smell like corn chips. So good. They smell exactly like Frito-Lay corn chips. Yes, smell your puppy for me, thank you. And let me know what the puppy smells like. But yeah, like my puppy had a previous owner, and they named her Cookie because she smelled like baked goods when she slept. She really did smell like biscuits baking when she slept. So I miss her. We had a wonderful 15 years together. So Tom, what's your next question?
Actually, you want to take a break for a few minutes?
Okay. So let me look at my timers.
Because I definitely need a moment to kind of regroup and.
Sure. I've got. That's the only 10-minute puppy timer I have. We can redo this puppy timer. Or I got a thunderstorm 10-minute timer, or I don't know what that is. It's a nice other. What do we want? Do we want to do the puppy again?
Yeah, I'm up for more puppies. I mean, I did name a playlist awesome puppies will follow.
Yes. Okay. Yes, it's true.
By the way, really, doll, your story is pretty awesome overall. Like,
I told you, doll. Tom comes home and tells me about it. Alrighties.
do I have development story ideas for it? Yes, but I do for everyone's.
It's a compliment, really. All right, y'all. Violet's killing me here. Puppy smells like a dumpster. What's the puppy been rolling in? I'm telling you. Oh, they'll roll in anything they get. Oh, do you remember when Cassie would find a dead bird in the dog park to roll it? It's like, guess she's taking a bath when she gets home.
I worked on this lovely smell. Why are you getting rid of it?
Yes. Yes. All right. Okay. I mean,
You raised a good point.
yeah, she was pretty magical. Okay. Are we ready in 3? Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all, get your water, stretch, maybe a bathroom break, maybe a snack break. Get that weighted blanket, put on those fuzzy socks, do the thing.
Make some tea.
Make some tea. Hug your puppies, your kitties, your stuffed animals. Where's my stuffy? This is my little dragon that Tom gave me. Okay? And we'll meet you back here in 10 minutes. All right? In 3, 2, 1. Sprint! Beep 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 beep. Hello, welcome back. How did it go? What has people accomplished? It is my sincerest wish that everyone has hopefully at least accomplished something to drink. Ooh, the Chinese food is almost here. Woohoo! Oh, got asked how late I can work tonight. Oh, I mean, it is a Monday. The cutest fluffy puppies. Yes. It is my new happy find. You stop petting puppies? I mean...
Well, stranger puppies.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand that. There's a lot of animals I don't pet. Just because I'm highly suspicious of their owners. I don't think their owners necessarily train them or socialize them well, and I'm like, pass. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, apparently when I switched my avatar, it switched both of ours.
Yeah, I
The
saw.
next time.
When I came back, I was like, oh, that's funny. See? Very nice. Very nice. Accomplished standing up. About to get a drink. Very nice. Yes. Like the bit with Gamora and Quill in the battle. I mean, the choices were him, the moron, or a tree. I feel like deep inside, though, Gamora was thinking, would the tree have been so bad?
Yeah. I think that was a thought.
You know, having only just met Quill, it's like, was the tree so bad, though? Was it an expressive tree? Why did I pick him?
Yeah, Gloria and I have talked about, some episodes sometime this year that would impart, when they're getting excited about movies, using Endgame and the will CB still respect us if we admit we actually enjoy Endgame? Will she still be around if we're like, no, we enjoy watching this movie? It's going to be a hard one.
We literally were talking about it last night.
Yeah.
Would she be okay with us? Will she still come around if we admit how much we actually like Endgame as a movie?
I mean, don't get us wrong.
Heartbreaking. Don't get me wrong. It is heartbreaking, but I like the pace. I like the stories. I like it.
I don't even mind the fan service.
Right. I like it more than the Incredible Hulk movie.
That's true.
So, Maggie says, this is totally a farm mom thing, but all I could think about was how many stickers and mud one would have to get out of the fluffy fur. There. Each to their own. I only don't like it because the ending is the ending, I cry every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Dal got some tea. Laura says 3 shirts arrived today. 1 retro Star Wars one and 2 Beetlejuice ones.
Nice. Who made the Beetlejuice ones?
Can we expect to see this soon? So, okay. By the way, I got a pee break in. I'm not ashamed to talk about it.
So there was already one I talked with Gloria about for this next segment. But sort of before that, because of everything that's been going on in the chat stream, and we'd actually talked about, maybe we'll later on as kind of a continuation of our previous one, was it last week, about the jobs, job counseling, of doing another episode of, the dark side job counseling.
Well, the black market jobs, curbside drug dealers, truck stop prostitutes. We've had plenty of.
And then there was this one we were actually talking about yesterday, about in part because of today's, the one that sort of goes with it, and that is abusers. And that we have
known more than our fair share of pedophiles
and stalkers and almost every kind of abuser you can think of. Yeah, we've known our fair share.
More than our fair share.
And that the Hollywood description and of these type of people is not accurate at all.
Yeah, pedophiles are definitely not in search of children who are loved, children whose parents are always showing up to sports practice and kind of thing. These children are not, because how do you find pedophiles? Wherever there are lots and lots of children and very few to no parents or other family members, and that wherever the adults are among lots of children, unsupervised children, that is where you find pedophiles. So, yes, a lot of sporting coaches, a lot of ice skating coaches, swimming coaches, hockey coaches, gymnastic coaches. Yes, these specialty sports that require a lot of practice at odd hours of the day. So it interferes with parents' other schedules. So essentially the children are unsupervised a lot, unless you count the coach. Yes, that is where you find pedophiles congregate. Now, when we were children, NAMBLA vans roamed the South. That is a real thing, by the way. That actually happened in the early 80s in the Deep South. And we know this because NAMBLA had a newsletter back then. And they literally had advice on how to pick up children and how to outfit your van and places where law enforcement values adults over children, such as in the Deep South. So anyway, yeah. So we were talking about that, but we were like, it's not exactly like an autism and job counseling part 2. That's but it would be kind of interesting from a writer's perspective of character and character development backgrounds to understand.
Because we were talking in part about it because every story is a suspension of disbelief. That is a requirement to enjoy a fictitious story.
Mm-hmm. And
the more that you don't have to rely on a suspension of disbelief, that such as these are how the characters act, this is how people in this profession act,
mm-hmm.
the less, you have to rely on that stretching your reader's disbelief. So we've dealt with a lot of, we've had, lots of people we've known in the underbelly as well, and not so legal trades let's talk about with those as well, so that these characters you write in your stories are more realistic. But yeah, abusers and stalkers and stuff they're not looking for the ones that have a large support network. They're looking for people who are isolated.
So all right, last story, and then we'll get back to PTSD. Okay, so several years ago now, Tom and I were both taking digital photography photojournalism class. And the assignment for the weekend was to go take pictures of Mardi Gras weekend anywhere. So we went to New Orleans. When I say Mardi Gras weekend, I mean it's the weekend before Fat Tuesday. It is Mardi Gras weekend.
Where it's 48 hours straight.
It's practically 72 hours of insanity. Anyway, but so we went Saturday night together to this. Did Erica come with us that time?
No.
was just you and me.
This one was just us.
That's right. And it had rained. So the crowds weren't too unbearable since it had rained and the asphalt was still wet. So the crowds hadn't really come back out. It was still very, very busy. I mean, pre-pandemic Mardi Gras weekend, French Quarter was still bonkers. And the TV show Cops was filming that weekend on Bourbon Street. And so it was like, we got there, I think around 10-ish, and it was now like 4:30, 5 a.m. And I was ready to go home. I'd gotten plenty of pictures. I think we had both filled up every
Memory card.
Every memory card we brought, we'd filled up between both of us and our cameras. So it was like, let's go home now. I've also seen more than enough sad titties. So I'm ready to go. They were particularly sad, weren't they, that night?
Yeah.
Like, they were sadder than previous Mardi Gras when we'd gone, and there were like happy titties.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there, because I wasn't taking those. I did take a bunch of pictures because, like, when the ladies are like, you want to see, like, you don't want to hurt their feelings. So, of course, I took pictures. To calm down, like, everyone wants to feel special. But I did not show those in photography class because, it's for genteel. And we were walking back to the car, which we were very poor college students at the time. So I had not parked the car in, one of those nice paid parking places. We parked on one of the streets that we knew we could for free. So we were in the thick of it. And these two guys started following us. And where we were parked was in obviously the less populated area. It was at the very opposite end of the French Quarter. That is, it's not the busy part. It's more the residential area and the seedier part. And I turned to Tom so I could see out of the corner of my eye who it was. And they were definitely, what we would call ruffians. And I said, you know how long it's been since I've stabbed anyone? Tom.
And, I responded, well, it's been at least 2 years since you stabbed me.
I'm like, yeah, I miss that. They literally stopped walking. And I was like, I miss stabbing someone. It's funny how you get a reputation and then nobody wants to party with you anymore. This night was unusually quiet. They literally turned around and left. They literally turned around on the sidewalk and went down an alley. Because we were like literally within visual distance of the car at this point. Criminals are lazy, and they do not like people who cause trouble. So when you talk loudly about, I miss stabbing people, they take your word for it. I mean, I have stabbed Tom. But, most of the time it doesn't scar. He has a mouth, y'all. You don't understand. He has a smart mouth, and I will warn him, and he ignores me. And then it's like a fork to the leg through his jeans. It barely bleeds. Maggie says, New Orleans during Mardi Gras was insane when I went, and 3 different times I had to fight off some guy. TG?
Thank God.
For self-defense training. CB says, my parents drove from New Orleans back to Houston through Hurricane Katrina. Holy cow.
Yeah, ours at least waited a day till after Katrina. It's like, we got to go. Because, actually, I believe our parents went to Houston because isn't that where MD Anderson is?
Yeah, because Mom was getting her thyroid removed at Ochsner in New Orleans. And they heard Katrina was coming in. So Mom discharged herself against medical advice or whatever that thing is. And they went ahead and drove to Houston trying to beat Katrina, where they knew they could stay with a friend in their apartment above their garage. Because the friend had a house that had a separate apartment above the garage. They could stay while they got into MD Anderson. And since mom was literally in the middle of her thyroid cancer treatment, and our stepfather was retired Navy, I don't know, whatever, MD Anderson took him in. So she was able to get the rest of her they had just sewed her back up like a day and a half before that. But yeah, that was our mom drove the opposite from New Orleans to Katrina. I mean, I like the French Quarter. I don't know that I would recommend anybody do Mardi Gras there, like Mardi Gras weekend. Especially not during a pandemic. But that said, it was an assignment. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Go to Mobile for Mardi Gras? I mean, Mobile did start the Mardi Gras parades, but they did. They really took care of mom well. New Orleans, not in the summertime, is great. See me. I highly recommend New Orleans in the autumn and winter, but especially like winter and early spring before hurricane season, it's great. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily during a plague though. So anyhow.
Yeah. Anyway.
What is your next question, darling?
All right. So we've now talked about PTSD. We've talked about some of the stuff people do. We've talked a little bit about recovery.
Oh, you wanted to talk about the PTSD party?
Yes.
Okay, this is my favorite part. Okay, so if there's a point in the PTSD recovery journey, the healing journey, where you're processing the actual trauma and the effects of the trauma, like you're processing the trauma from the flashbacks and the nightmares and the triggers and everything. And you're doing okay. You're bopping along. And then you feel strong enough and safe enough to start triggering yourself on purpose as part of your recovery journey, as part of your healing. And that is what we call the PTSD party. So this is the part I wanted to share. This is the part I love about the things you can do to actually aid in your recovery, and it makes it easier to process. It's also a really fun thing. I say they're fun. Will you say they're fun? I don't know. Maybe not. You should give it a try. Okay.
They can be.
I think so. And that is, there's art therapy. And in fact, it's something that I was originally introduced to in my support group. And in fact, several members of the support group, we would get together after support group meetings or at other times of the week and go to someone's house. Everyone would bring their magazine stacks. And we would cut out magazine stuff for hours and put together our own collages on poster board. And it was a lot of fun. It's fun to do it by yourself. I'm going to tell you now, it's a lot of fun to do it with other people, whether they are processing through trauma or not. Honestly, I have not found another human, mostly, okay, I'm going to be honest, I mostly have done this with children. When I don't have a lesson planned and I find out I'm suddenly teaching something, it's like, hey, I'm passing out magazines. Everybody cut stuff. We're going to make like collages. And they love it. I've done it with teenagers too. Remember when I was a youth director of 2 different churches the same year, and suddenly like I've got all these teenagers And I didn't know I was going to have to do anything that weekend because nobody told me. And they're like, oh, yeah, we need you to be here. And you also need to keep all the teens busy. It's like, we're doing collage work again. So, yes, I used to buy poster board by the case from Sam's Club. And like you can, like say, for instance, have a poem or a little something that you've written and cut out things, words, and pictures out of magazines that seem somehow relevant to a quote of yours or someone else's quote or a poem or anything, or you can just have it about a feeling or a memory or a nightmare or a flashback and cut out things that are evocative of that. And then you arrange it before you glue it all down. Because you really need it to look right to you first, and then it's time for glitter. No, I know some people feel things about glitter, and I respect that, but it's time for the embellishments. You need to glue everything down, and then embellishments. Highlighters, puffy stuff. What is that stuff called? You know what I'm talking about?
I thought it was just puff paint.
Puff paint. That was it. It's not puffy glue, but the puff paint is cool. There's all sorts of. Hit that scrapbooking section, hit the garage sales and pick up people's failed scrapbooking materials, washi tape all through it. It's a lot of fun. And you're thinking, but can therapy be fun? Yes, it can be effective while it's fun. And it still actually helps. Because the whole time you're looking for pictures, you're cutting out pictures, you're arranging things, you're arranging words, you're doing all this, and then you're embellishing the whole time you're doing it. Your brain is processing the trauma. It is really therapeutic. Same for making puppets to act out. If it was like there was the conversations, or you wrote a little play about a traumatic event, or even just you wrote a little, one-page dialogue script about telling someone about the traumatic event. And making puppets and then filming the puppets, or I guess it's like
really anything where you can get where your hands move while you are adjacent to processing trauma, where you are thinking about this to some degree, because your brain really does, for whatever reason, think at the speed your hands move. So if you can just move your hands, your brain will work on stuff.
Yes. You can make little crochet amiguri toys and put the whole traumatic scene in there as little amiguri dolls. And it's all therapeutic. It is all really useful. And in fact, I found that to be, if anything, more helpful for me than talk therapy. So, yeah, I know y'all hate glitter, but I mean, obviously, I love it. I respect that you don't. It's okay.
Gloria's a drag queen inside.
Yes. And sometimes on the outside. Yes, I understand. I'm just saying, you could bring out the little rhinestones and glue them down if you're not going to do glitter, okay? Just embellish it.
Give it some sparkle.
Give it ribbon or something.
Or metallic tape.
Yes. Ooh, metallic tape is really nice. I like metallic washi tape. And that stuff sticks hard. So that's part of it. And then there's the music. I figured I would go ahead and share so I'm going to tell you about music. Music is actually very helpful, both listening to music and even writing music, composing music is, again, can be very therapeutic. I did by accident come across a song that was very triggering for me for, I don't know, almost 20 years now. And when I want to feel triggered, which is usually where I feel like there's a need to process and I want to get it jump started. I want to lean into the uncomfortableness. I want to immerse myself in these feelings of being trapped and emotionally smothered and, absolutely oppressed, I will often listen to this song. And that's how I get it going. That's how I rev the engine up. I have actually consulted with a bunch of composers about why is this song so traumatizing. This song has literally very little to nothing to do with any trauma I've ever experienced, with the exception of I misheard the lyrics originally. I thought the lyrics were, "Our love is like Walter, pinned down and abused for being strange." Which I'm like, there's so much here to unpack about Walter. Why aren't we talking about Walter in the rest of the lyrics? Because we never talk about Walter beyond. And it took years, because I originally heard this back in the very early 2000s, or late 90s. And it was before I could find the lyrics. Eventually, I did find the lyrics, like almost a decade later. And I was like, no, it says our love is like water, like drinking water. And I'm like, who pins down and abuses water? How does... Seriously, some musicians will just write anything. So, but I've consulted with several composers and music historians and music theorists about why is it, because it's not the words. I've listened to the instrumentals and it still makes me feel sick to my stomach. When I listen to the song, I feel like I'm being touched inappropriately. And the best that people have figured so far is it is not just discordant. It doesn't follow any proper chords. It plays around. It essentially was written because this is how it sounds rather than they were following music theory of chord progressions. So it's essentially this song, the composing wise, was all over the place. And that maybe that's why it's a very disunified piece of music. But I keep track of this song for when I'm ready to process something more, when I'm feeling in that mood to process trauma or to re-experience it, to even write about it. I get into it by listening to this song so that I can get in that headspace. And you may, in your healing journey, come across music or visuals or even movies or movie scenes that are always triggering to you. And the first thing you're going to want to do is run away from it. Ban it. Never look at it again. There will come a point in many people's healing journey when they feel strong enough, or they feel like they're in that place where they want to actually actively trigger themselves in order to process on their own terms. And that's when these kind of triggering pieces of media will come in handy for you. And yes, it is perfectly normal. I have consulted with therapists about this. And it turns out a lot of people with PTSD do this. And it is it's just considered an obvious part of human psychology. So, but then for other people, there are just regular occurring triggers. So for instance, if it's the anniversary of the death of someone, that's a triggering day for you, or it's the anniversary of your own trauma or a traumatic event, or something about a particular day on the calendar every year is a difficult day or weekend or month or whatever for you. My advice, which you may not have asked for, but I'm going to tell you, is instead of trying to just act normal while you feel miserable and like shit, my advice is lean into it a bit. If you know that you tend to comfort eat when a particular day on the calendar rolls around every year, honey, go ahead beforehand and prepare like there's a blizzard coming and you got to buy blizzard chips. Yes, I love the fact that Canadians have blizzard chips. I mean, like, Canadians gave us everything potato chips, and I appreciate that about them, as well as ketchup potato chips, which at first you're like, huh? And then they grow on you. They're really good. So I'm just saying, if you know that you have a tendency to eat tons of ice cream and smoke a pack of cigarettes on, the anniversary of someone's death, Go ahead and buy the good cigarettes. Go ahead and buy your favorites ahead of time and have them ready. Go ahead and buy the good ice cream, not the crappy ice cream that you can find at the 7-Eleven at 2 in the morning. Go ahead and prepare for it. And just like every year, this is how you get through that day, is you accept there will be plenty of triggering, and at least you have quality stuff instead of eating crap, like real trash, like the low quality. Low quality ice cream is such a tragedy sometimes, unless you really enjoy low quality ice cream. There's something to be said for those little vanilla ice cream cups from childhood. Why does the ice cream taste like the wood top, the cardboard top? And yet every couple of years I kind of want one. So I'm just saying, like, if you're like, it wasn't even the kind of ice cream I really wanted, go ahead, accept that this calendar day comes every year and get yourself ready. It's part of your PTSD recovery, is acknowledging that you are going to feel triggered, that you're going to feel crappy, that at some point you're going to either lash out at, someone or something, whether they're there or not, or you're going to cry, or you're going to do all the above or whatever. And you just accept it, because the shame of trying to pretend you're normal when you're not is worse. It is preventing you from exploring your healing journey. So that is what I'm saying, is the PTSD party means you buy the good chips, you buy the good ice cream, you get the good liquor, whatever. You pay for the movie that you like to watch, and yes, it makes you cry every time, and you only watch it on this anniversary day, but so be it. So be it once a year. You're going to watch this movie, you're going to sit and eat ice cream, and you're going to cry into your ice cream. That's fine. Do not feel any shame about it. If anything, lean in, explore it. Then maybe make a collage about it. Be sure to put the tub of ice cream on there. Because that's part of healing, is, if anything, almost celebrating the parts that keep hitting rock bottom in your process.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrate it. Explore it. Honor it even. Because that is where your healing will be. I resisted for so many years. Everybody in group therapy was saying, like, oh, Gloria, you should just, like, accept that there's certain things that you find triggering and certain days. And I was like, no, I'm going to be normal. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to move on. No, you're not. Whether you're consciously aware of the calendar day or not, unconsciously, you are still aware of it, and you still feel like shit on that day. So get the good ice cream. You get your favorite ice cream. Get your favorite cake. Set aside the money for the little mini shopping spree you will do on this anniversary day every year. And just go ahead. If anything, get yourself the gift card so the money is set aside and it won't affect your bank account, and you won't, like, send your bank account into overdraft. Just go ahead and know you're going to spend the money. Lean into it is what I'm saying. Honor it. Just plan it out.
We do this for the beginning of December every year, because even if we don't think about it,
it's still Mom's death week.
And so it's like, yeah, let's go make sure we got ice cream. Let's go make sure we've got popcorn.
Let's go make sure we have the good tequila.
Yeah.
2 fingers.
Let's be prepared, because at some point we're going to feel like drinking it.
Yep.
And enjoying it. Might as well have stuff that we're like, oh, this is fun and good.
Right. Exactly. And, we're going to watch the stuff that reminds us of Mom. And that we accept we're going to talk about Mom.
Because it's just part of it.
And that maybe we'll go drive by Pine Haven. Y'all.
Oh.
Y'all. She never could escape it.
But that's why it's, why we say it's the PTSD party.
Is if you think about like a lot of our comfort foods are party foods.
Well, and behaviors.
Yes. Listening to the music, watching the movies, going out driving late at night while smoking in the dark. Maybe it's just me.
Singing karaoke.
Yes.
It's all stuff you do at a party or on the way to a party. Because it helps everyone feel better. It's stuff we all enjoy doing, and either way. So it's set up your party and get the stuff you'll enjoy. Do not punish yourself for being upset.
Do not punish yourself. That will only slow your healing.
If you like ice cream, get the ice cream you like. Don't get the bucket.
I mean, honestly, like thinking about mom, yeah, I probably would make the lemon icebox pie, especially if I was thinking ahead of time about getting the supplies, which again, it's pie day. So I'm going to repeat the pie recipe. It's 4 ingredients, y'all. Graham cracker pie crust, or frankly, you just get graham crackers if you're going to do the deconstructed version. A tub of Cool Whip thawed. A little can of frozen concentrate lemon juice thawed. Not lemon juice, lemonade thawed. And I was thinking about, I have used fresh squeezed lemon juice, like about 4 ounces before. So you can do that, especially if you want to reduce the sugar, but it's tragedy. Add more sugar to it. And 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. In a bowl, put the sweet condensed milk and the thawed lemonade concentrate or lemon juice. Stir it and let it sit for at least 5, maybe 10 minutes just on the counter or whatever, so it can thicken up, because it'll kind of curdle, not exactly curdle, but it'll thicken up the sweet condensed milk. Then fold in or stir. Let's be honest, our mom never folded. The woman's cooking was slapdash, if at all. And just stir in the thawed Cool Whip. Okay, if you're trying to make it as a pie, since it is pie day, pour all of that in the graham cracker crust. You do not need to bake your graham cracker crust ahead. Who cares? Just pour it in, and it's going to mound. And you just kind of form the mound so you can get the lid back on, the clear plastic lid back on your graham cracker crust if you bought it store-bought, which I do, because life is short. If you're just using graham crackers and you want to deconstruct it, I recommend you break up the graham crackers first, not into tiny little, amounts, but like little chunks, and put it at the bottom of like something that's freezer safe. Honestly, you could use, cheap Tupperware. Who cares? And then you pour it over the graham cracker, pour this filling, and let it freeze. Leave it in your freezer for 2 to 4 hours or however long you can stand before you need to eat it. Because when you lick this bowl, you're going to be like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And yeah, that's a pie that you don't have to bake or do anything. And it literally is 4 ingredients. And it's so good. Now, if you want to do it the way my mother used to ruin it, when you're mixing it up, add a whole obnoxious amount of sweetened coconut, shredded coconut, and ruin the texture. Ruin it. But it's your party. You do what you want. Tom has no comments.
I've just been, enjoying the stream of the horrors that there is no graham crackers in the UK. So I was doing a quick Google search for what are alternative graham cracker Britain to see if anyone had any suggestions.
Do they really not have graham crackers at all?
Nope. They have digestive biscuits.
These are dark days, y'all. These are dark, dark days. How about a cookie crumb pie crust? Can you get that? Any kind of pre-made cookie pie crust? Yeah, check Tesco. CBD of Tesco there? Although, I don't know, does CBD sugar? I mean, or maybe CB was doing gluten-free. I'm not sure. Because, I mean, like, anyway. Okay.
Wow, there's actually a lot of conversations around the web of what are alternatives to graham crackers, because no, it's not in Britain, it's not in the UK or Australia. Which is weird since, America's so big about exporting all of our stuff.
Yeah, like...
well into the English-speaking world.
There is Amazon in the UK. Yeah, can we do care packages? Although, like, as I said, does CB eat wheat? Yes. Like, we have graham crackers in the living room, and I'm like, do I need to...
Yeah, she needs gluten-free.
Okay. Okay, so we need to figure out a gluten-free version, which I guess you could honestly, if you use, like, if you can find a gluten-free oatmeal cookies and crush those up, it would be actually a similar texture, maybe, since they were already made into cookies. So you would have that nice kind of hearty texture. Vollkorn Liebenitz. I don't know.
I love Liebenitz for that. Yeah, they're actually a pretty good substitute.
I do like. Yeah, what were they like? Tom, can you pull up an image of Vollkorn Liebenitz for us?
Okay.
I mean, is it about food? I'm very interested. Anyway, I hope you all get to celebrate Pi Day. And if not today, whenever it is convenient to you, it's still Pi Day. Pie is a very American food, and it has a lot to do with the Franklin stove and the stoves that were modified after that to be more effective for baking. Pie is very much like, while it wasn't invented in America, it really came into its own as an American food, specifically because the Franklin stove inspired the idea of home cooks being able to have their own proper stove and oven that they could bake in. Because, it used to be you went to the baker with your own bread to bake it, because they had the big oven. And the Franklin stove inspired people of, wow, this is close enough to the idea of an oven that maybe we could actually modify it into having a home oven. And that is where the idea of pies took off in America. And so it really became a symbol of American cooking, and that's why I'm like, pies are very much American. I feel like, let's like explore pies. Liebenitz. Oh yeah, those are really good. You know what? Those are great with Nutella.
Yes, they are.
That sounds delicious. 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 KFC's good anytime. Yes. Yes. So, anyhow, I want to encourage you in your PTSD recovery is to party. You don't need to go out necessarily to party if that would be uncomfortable, to be essentially emotional, to be triggered, to be dealing with flashbacks in the company of unsafe people. But it is okay to do it if you're around people that you feel safe and who understand, like, I'm going to be doing this and it may, make me cry, but I don't want you to get upset about it. If you're around safe people, they will understand. And if anything, they may want to go along with you and sing the songs, cut the paper, write the poetry, make the puppets, whatever. Yes, party like it's $16.99. Get your paper out. So I think did you have any other questions, Tom? Delicious Nilla wafers. Yes.
No, I think we've kind of actually gone over all the different aspects of.
Yeah, we've already talked about dissociative disorders.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the one thing I did want to mention about dissociation. Dissociation. It is so hard to say this word and not say disassociation, which is all humans are capable of a dissociative event. That state that we call a fugue or being in the zone, where the concept of time erodes and we're just in it, we're in the moment, that is a dissociative event. So all humans are capable of it. It is not necessarily trauma-based situation. The brain is capable of it just for anything. However, the brain will also do it as a protective approach to take to protect the rest of the psyche. It's an attempt to give you some space. I think of it as sort of the other side of flashbacks. With flashbacks, you're in it. With dissociation, you're out of it. So it is a way of getting a mental break. Have you ever noticed, like a child or even yourself, you're thinking hard about something, or maybe you're doing something that takes a lot of thought, and then from time to time you just sort of drift and stare at the wall for a moment, and then you go back. That is your brain actually needing a mental break. And so you just have a moment of a dissociative event. I literally already clicked on that, Tom. You were here. Yeah, we'll do chat after this. We'll do backstage. Of course, we're going to have the party. Y'all have the links. If you don't have the StreamYard link and if you'd like to come backstage after the show, let me know, and I will send you the link to join us backstage at StreamYard after the show tonight. But that was the only other thing I wanted to be sure to mention about dissociation is it actually, everyone is capable of it. In fact, most people have had at least several dissociative events in their life, because most people at some point are going to be able to be in the zone. We'll have an event, a fugue event. Oh, Lord, when I'm driving and then I realize I'm driving, yes, that is a dissociative event. So
it's called highway hypnotism.
Yes. So I just wanted to mention that about dissociation and dissociative disorders. Having a dissociative event is not a dissociative disorder, because the brain, all human brains are capable of dissociative events. And it's not a bad thing. It's the brain is putting all its processing power on something else. And it's essentially a way to switch gears. So, anyhow, let's see.
Yes, what is next week?
New business. Here, let's see.
That's just a frightening thought to Mama.
What?
Well, that's just a frightening thought to Mama.
That's happened to me too, if you recall.
Yes.
Did you come to a safe stop? Drawing book characters. Yep. All right. So, there. Next week, allies and friendship. What do we owe each other?
That's right. For everyone, for this For the few people here who might have actually watched, was it The Good Place? A little reference there.
Yes. Yes. Playing the piano, realizing you were playing a song and forget how to play it immediately. Yes. That's a dissociative event. Yeah. Finally, it's time for allies and friendship. Yep. So that is what we're going to do next week on March 22nd. And then the week after that is going to be our music week, where share your playlist. Everybody, I hope you have playlists you're ready to share on any platform you use it on, but like some way to share it so you can put your links in the chat so we all can get new playlists. We can explore your playlist. Maybe you have character playlists or story playlists you like to share. You don't have to tell us the story if you don't want to. We understand. But like I've got a whole playlist that's just from my rom-com, and there's like a ton of French music in it, and then there's a whole bunch of like 60s and 70s romantic music, or at least I think it's romantic. So I would absolutely love if that episode, the music episode, is going to be March 29th. So get ready now while you have time to prepare your playlist to share so we all can enjoy. It's going to be fun, and that is going to be our season ender for Awkward Sibling Hours, the music one on the 29th. So on the 22nd, we're going to talk about allies and friendship and how we could all be more supportive. And then on the 29th, we're going to talk about music and sharing playlists and talking about it. And everyone can come on. If you want to come on even in avatar mode and talk about particular bands or artists and why, you want to like essentially make a pitch. If I would like you to listen to this, here's why I think maybe you should. We would all love to hear everyone's pitches if you want to, or if you just want to practice pitching. Says the eternal teacher and salesperson. So the rest of you are like, no, I do not actually want to practice pitching. Thank you very much. Still, I just like saying, hey, it's open. It's something you don't have to do it, but we'd love to have you. But yeah. So that is what we're going to do. That is new business. Is there anything else that we are forgetting? And then in April, we're going to start back with second season of Getting Excited About Movies, and we are so excited about it. We have a big surprise. We just can't tell you how much, like, we're like, so we're going to get there. Is there anything else, Tom?
No, I think that's everything.
Did anybody have any news they wanted to share about upcoming streams or anything in the chat or links? Anything coming up? If Charlie's still around, are you streaming this week? Laura, are you streaming this week? Or if anybody's got videos coming out, or they just came out with videos or stories, if anybody has it, or if you are like, I was not prepared for this glory, how dare you? Have it ready for next week, and we would love to share it in the chat.
Come on, there's the update. Let's see.
Okay, Eva, books by Adrian. Check out his channel for potential contest he mentioned. And then Laura, I'm doing a stream tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern after Austin K. Is that Austin? I assume it's Austin K. Austin K is going back to do it. Yes, I love that idea. I have several people. That would be awesome. He said a video would be coming. Okay, cool. Well, I think I want to say, okay, hold on. There. Okay, I think most people, I'm just making more people moderators so they can always post links because I don't think about things.
Oh, Maggie's got one coming up in a couple days on the 19th, book launch.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's right. Is this the last? No, the second to. I think it's the third Hunter's book is coming out.
Okay, Doll's now moderator, and Laura and Tamama. So y'all can also post links whenever you want. Okay. Or deal with shenanigans. I mean, we really haven't had any shenanigans, but I'm just saying, like, okay, y'all are all moderators now. You have wrenches. So even in the future, if I forget about it again, you can post links. So if y'all know of anything upcoming next week, please come with your links. Okay. So, Tom, did you want to do an outro?
I don't know why you keep asking this when you already know what the answer is.
I mean, I'm your older sister, so I just kind of frankly enjoy it. Tom is a lovely, wonderful person who loves playing with computers and phones and tablets. And if he can help you fix yours in the process, he's happy. But also, if he could just take apart yours, he would be happy, period. Sort of like a deconstructed technical surgeon, but in a tech surgeon kind of way. He has even goes so far as to write how-to instructions on how you can fix the most common problems with your computer. Just to give that for everyone. And he's also my producer. And he's great. So, and then, hi. My name is Glory. You've wandered onto my channel, and I hope it's where you want it to be. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you've had a wonderful time, and I'm very impressed that you've made it this far. Yes, CB would like to remind everyone, Camp Nano is in 16 days. Are you prepped? This is the fourth.
And on the 19th, it'll be Maggie's fourth Huntsman's book.
Excellent. And then Laura's got a link with writing tip stream from the Write-a-thon. Right? Is that your chat stream where you talked about how to write horror? I heard about it. Thank you so much for coming. We are here because you are here. If y'all weren't coming, we wouldn't keep doing it. But because you are here, you make it worthwhile every time. We drag ourselves, pull ourselves together, drag ourselves out of bed and actually do this. And every time afterwards, we love that we did it. But it's mostly because you all came and made it so, so, so much better. Your first wrench. Oh, well. Hello, baby. Hope you won't miss that cherry. I know. I'm sorry. I had to have a moment. So, I'm Glory. I write humorous nonfiction and fiction stories. And there is a free one right now on my channel called Mabel Woke Up Dead This Morning. It's a dark humor story. I hope you enjoy it. I have another one coming out soon. So if this is your first time to my channel and you liked what you saw, please give me a like. If you would like more, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you'll get notifications both when we stream on Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern every Monday, rain or shine, and also when I post new stories, which will be forthcoming this year. So thank you so much for coming, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.